is ABC 7 News This Morning.
Up next are George Zimmerman's legal troubles over. A legal expert looks at the controversial acquittal.
Well, the verdict is not guilty in the George Zimmerman murder trial. It is a controversial decision that's touched off protest all across the country.
And while Zimmerman is a free man, his legal troubles may not be over. Attorney Dan Kotin joins us now to talk a little bit more about the case. And let's begin with that whole notion of whether or not he could face some sort of civil charges from the Justice Department.
Well, Ben, there are two other possible avenues that could be pursued here. One would be a federal civil rights action, which the Justice Department is right now investigating. You may remember 15, 20 years ago when the Rodney King trial took place, the state court California jury acquitted those police officers for the beating of Rodney King. And that was very publicized. What was quieter was in the aftermath of that, the federal government pursued civil rights charges against those officers. Two of them were convicted and did prison time. So that could in fact happen here. However, in order to do so, the federal government would have to prove that this attack was racially motivated. Some people call it a hate crime. For whatever reason, the prosecutors in Florida chose not to go down that racial path in pursuing this case. Maybe there isn't enough evidence for it. But if there is enough evidence, we can be sure that the federal government will do so and pursue that.
Let's talk about immediately after the verdict. Obviously, it touched off a lot of anger. There's a lot of emotions involved over here. But looking at it legally from the presentation that you were watching, were you surprised at the verdict? Was this a tough case to prove?
We have to be very sensitive because of all the racial and moral and civil undertones that take place here. But from a purely legal analysis, I was not surprised by the verdict. As I was watching it from afar over the course of 3 weeks, it was a very hard case to prove. Second-degree murder charges, which require a jury to get into the mind of the defendant. They had to be convinced that he was feeling spite or ill will as he committed this crime. There were only two witnesses to the event. One of them is dead, and the other one is the defendant himself, who's claiming self-defense.
The jury, 6 women, all 5 of them white, 1 identifies as Hispanic. Would that jury have been seated in Cook County?
I don't know what the demographics are of the jury pool down in Sanford, Florida. The fact that there were 6 women and no men, very unusual. I had one jury where we had 10 women and 2 men, so it can happen, but that's very unusual. The fact that there were arguably no minorities on the jury, again, I would have to know what the demographics are. The Constitution prohibits either side from excluding jurors based upon their ethnicity or their religion or other reasons. So we have to believe that there was no improper exclusion of jurors that took place. But everybody was surprised by the 6-0 female to male ratio.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
My pleasure.
All the reaction continues to come in. Thank you for your legal analysis.
Sure.
We appreciate it.